collage of different kinds of
I'm a
music.
composer.
It's like,
I'm a composer of electronic music,
signals.
and I compose political music, and I'm still living. The question is, how?
So, hello and welcome to the Q&A series of the Norient Film Festival 2021. My name is Christopher and I'm organizing these Q&As. Besides live session, we also have pre-recorded Q&As, and this session you see here is a pre-recorded one. This Q&A is all about the power of sound and film with a special focus on Hollywood and Bollywood. I would like to introduce Miriam for our moderation. She's a researcher in film studies at the University of Venice. The director of the film, the soundman Mangesh Desai, Subash Sahoo, the director Midge Costin with her movie Making Waves, The Art of Cinematic Sound, and last but not least, expert and researcher in global Bollywood cinema, Monia Acciari. And now the word to you, Miriam.
Thanks for having me moderating this session. I'm very excited about it. And thanks to the directors and to Monia for joining me on this, because I think there's such a rich discussion that hopefully we can have and share with the audience here. I would just start straight away with a couple of questions to Midge and to Subash regarding your films, just to get into it directly. So maybe first to Subash, how did you decide? How did you encounter the figure of Mangesh Desai, and how did you decide to center your film on him? Because obviously the soundman Mangesh Desai is very much about reconstructing a portrait of this fantastic man.
Yeah. Initially, I was just looking for some man to have a lifetime achievement award about some engineer, some re-recordist mixing engineer who has a tremendous impact on the Bollywood, maybe in the industry. So while I was zeroing down, I just saw, I gone through the interview, the people initially to make a short span of like 18 minutes film. Then realize, my goodness, I have not seen the other side of this man. Though I have seen each and every subconscious mind, I have seen all the films where everywhere you'll find Mangesh Desai. You take the name, whether it's say that time we call parallel cinema or whatever art cinema and the commercial cinema, you take from A to Z, he's there every moment subconsciously. We don't see him. You are feeling him. You see somebody's there. Then when I realized, then I zeroed down that lifetime achievement award in India for a certain people on which actually I can give the award. So I decided to make Mangesh Desai. While I was showing this short film to the people of that particular festival, everybody loved it. They were like, wow, my goodness. Then I thought, this man, whatever he has done in the lifetime, it can't be actually, I can restrict him in 18 minutes. I have to make a full-length film. Then my journey started. Then I explored and found, my goodness. And slowly, while I was exploring, it actually intrigued me, and it actually, the whole his work reflected me inside me in various ways.
Yeah, thank you. It's really fascinating. No, for sure. I mean, having watched the film 10-15 minutes wouldn't be enough to tell this story at all, because there's so much to say. And as you just mentioned, it was really someone that was kind of impacting on different genres and different sector of the audiovisual, so from advertisement to like more experimental films to more feature length. And it's really interesting that you mentioned that you started interviewing people, because the format of the interview is very much what Midge decided to go with for her film. And it's really amazing. There are so different films, but they have so much in common, I think. And so my question to Midge would be, how did you decide to, I mean, I reckon you must have had really lots of materials. It's such an incredibly rich film with so many people, you know, inputting in it. So how did you decide to select what you finally put in?
Well, it was what my impetus to do it is because just like Subash, I've also I've been a sound editor in Hollywood for so long, and when I was at film school, I didn't care about sound, and I felt like it was like, oh, this necessary evil you have to do at the end, and it's just technical. And then I was finishing up my thesis film and I needed money. And I always tell my students, I lowered myself and took a sound job, but I really wanted to be a picture editor. And then I started to work, and suddenly I realized, oh my God, it's so important. I'm setting the mood and the tone and making sure you can hear what they're saying, the actors, it's their performance, it's the story. There's so much involved. And because I probably had I had a musical background and whatever, I just got it, you know, it just like became like, oh my God, this is so important. And I was like a born again sound person. And then I just wanted everybody to know. And I've wanted to make this film for so long, you know, to say, we're here, we're behind the scenes. And sound matters, you know, and it impacts our lives so much, you know, like you're hearing. So right away I knew, you know, but the only way that you can do it is you have to show films. You have to show examples, right? The same thing that Subash did. You have to show examples or people, they don't know. They think you turn on the camera and the sound appears.
Yeah.
And what was so great is that, so I wanted to do interviews. I wanted to make it accessible to not just sound people, but people, not just film people, but, you know, everyone who loves movies or anyone. So I knew I wanted to get the big name kind of directors, but I really cared about the sound people. So, I mean, like what blows me away about Subash's film is that he had so much power. You know, and it's like, I don't think anyone that I know in all of, you know, like American films, no sound person has that power. However, they had the power to be able to, I asked the sound people to get the directors. So I because I teach at USC and I actually have an endowed chair given by George Lucas and Steven Spielberg.
Okay.
But all these big directors, they did it for their sound people because they love them and they know how important they are. But I use directors who care about sound.
No, that's great. And this already opens like so many things that I would like to touch upon. But I mean, in my impression is very much that from what you were just saying, Midge, it's more like the director then go pick the sound editor rather than the other way around. Whilst in you know the case of you know the wonderful story that Subash is telling us really looks like it is the other way around. So I don't know if you guys have any you know comments on that, because it really is a match between the director and the sound editor or the sound engineer, doesn't it?
Subash, tell us about, it seemed like the directors like actually were wanted, they were hoping that he would say yes to their films. And also, you know what blew me away? I might be jumping, sorry, but when he gave feedback on the films, you know?
Yeah.
What to do, and then they'd shoot additional stuff. I mean, that is wild.
No, actually, to be honest, I'll tell you, I am also a sound designer, sound engineer, whatever you say. I passed out from Pune Film Shoot, FTII. After, I am a basically degree engineer in electronics and communication. After that, actually, I joined Pune Film Shoot. So during what, if you see at it, in sound, everybody hear, but nobody is listening to us. If you look at it, so nobody is listening. In India, one line everybody says, everybody is crying, but nobody has teardrop in eye. So that is the actually so sad part of it. If you look at it through all over, So I decided while I was actually the General Secretary of Indian Sound Association.
Okay.
I thought when actually the people are not recognizing, though everybody's talking, but they're not recognizing. But first of all, what we are doing for ourselves, how you are going to educate our own people, how you want to show your own power to the people. Only people can see it, observe it through you if you are just showing something. So then actually this particular thing comes to make this film. I'm so happy you won't believe. After seeing this film in a couple of festivals and all the other associations, we have almost like 50 associations in India, in particular in Bollywood. If you find most of the people, they came out and it was a kind of inertia with everybody. Everybody's interested to make a film on their own. People who has already contributed to somebody, but nobody made it as of now since last 3 years. So my only question was, when the people is doing, if you are saying something, just show it to people actually who we are, what we are doing. So that is the reason actually for which I decided to make a film on the person who has a tremendous contribution, what he has done. You see, our power is not actually limited to sound. The way actually music director is actually creating the notes. We are also creating notes. As Miss says, we are also creating notes in each effects. Sound editor job is just same. If I'm a sound designer, if my sound editor doesn't do anything, I'm handy. I don't do anything. So basically, these are the ornaments. You can say these are the ornaments they created. Sound editor. They actually punctuate it in so beautiful way, so that it actually come with a really beautiful viewing or hearing way. You can actually what you call feel it, sense it.
Sure. And I really had this very sort of tactile sensation when I was watching both of your films. Like literally, I've been having goosebumps all the way through Midge film. And I was like, oh my God, this is really impacting. Being a person trained in visual arts, oh my God, it's really the combination of the two. But before going into that, and maybe even touching upon a very fortunate formula that I think, Midge, you use, which is the circle of talent that comes through your film a couple of times and sort of resonated very much with what Subash was just saying. I would like to let Monia in, because I'm sure that, having a sort of, particular access to Indian and global cinema, you will have a lot to contribute with. So I mean,
thank you, Miriam. I was dying to well, first of all, to say great, both of you. I really enjoyed both films. Now, just because I'm a historian and I work on Indian cinema, I thought, oh my God, Mangesh Desai, wow, I mean, this is really great. And I have to say two things about the film, and then I will let you go with the different points you want to touch upon. But first of all, Subash film, I think, is a very important contribution, not just to the actual, and I'm talking as a historian here, so sorry, maybe I sound boring, but as a very important contribution to actually rethink the history of Indian cinema by looking at specific personalities, like, of course, like Mangesh Desai, and the way you do it by using archival work and interviews, it's exceptional. So your film, it's one of these very few films, few documentaries that came out since, say, a couple of years, maybe. The celluloid man, and then we had a different movie on what was that? Shalom Bollywood. And then your film are actually films that are finally moving beyond what we find in an archive, which unfortunately in India is not much for many reasons. And you're actually reinvestigating and telling us a lot of what is hidden. And that's beautiful. It's a beautiful work of retelling history, and telling us something that, it's still not written. So very well done with that. And so that was something that I really wanted to mention, because I think that the current panorama of Indian cinema is changing a lot, and there is focus on those kind of historical aspects which you as a filmmaker are making us making a kind of aware about. And well, throughout, of course I've enjoyed the way you have been tapping into Mangesh Desai's history, the way you've been working with different personalities across the industries, and the way you have been placing together his personal story as a man, as a sound producer, and at the same time the authority that he had within the industry. Mentioning also that, and then I'll shut up, I promise, that sound, I'm actually, Miriam, you made a very interesting point. Sound has such a core role in Indian cinema, say in the mainstream cinema. We first, well, let's say it's a marketing strategy, okay, that Bollywood industry uses. They sell the music, they sell the sound, and then they sell the film. And that will dictate the success of the film. So having a figure like him that would determine the success of the film was core. And really, it's a brilliant work. Really well done.
No, and it's great because, this session is entitled The Power of Sound. And sometimes the power of sound is very much connected to the power of, exceptional figures, like, like Desai, for example. So obviously it is like really a structural and literal power, but obviously it is an emotional power. And that comes through, in the way that really puts together different efforts and different sort of collaboration that sort of synthesize the work of so many people. And so, I mean, not being an expert on that, not being like a person that edits, it was very much apparent to me from the two films that when it comes to sound, it is really about something complex, about something that is so multidimensional. And so this circle of talent that I wanted to get back, that Midge proposes throughout her film, really shows visually something that, for you probably being trained also and having worked so long in sound, is immediately clear. So there are really different components that come together and sort of create an harmony, right? And that was very fascinating. I suppose that really comes through the film, and it is immediately understandable to everybody, like not special experts of sound. So clearly it was very, very interesting to see that, and to see how you retrace the history of these different components coming together. So obviously you had different sound artists and sound editors that you interviewed, and there are some key figures that are working a little bit as narrators in your film. So yeah, I mean, is there anybody that influenced you personally more than others among those that you interviewed? Or
yeah, definitely there's so many. Actually, each person, actually, when I spoke to them, I it's an animator who actually was making the writing of sorry, he's just sketching the Mangesh Desai's the art. He's actually through him and one interview I could actually cover up. I actually find I didn't get, because this film particularly took me near about 5 years to complete. It was really it's a long journey, because as I said, everybody speak about it, but in the other side of the story, it's basically as being a sound person, the power of sound is there, but the power of the person is not there. I'm not an actor. Maybe people was taking it casually, lightly, maybe that way. So I'm talking about in between, I got some audio recording of Mr. Guljar. Guljar Saab is a very renowned lyricist, poet, film director, and so many. I got some audio clip I couldn't use. So he said, one of his recording while he was directing the film, he went with the foreign cars to his, like, he used to smoke in a foreign brand. Foreign is not Indian, some outside car. So one find that he was very, very, Mangesh Desai was very influential and very, very, you can say, freedom fighter. So one find that he told Guljar Saab, Mr. Guljar, if being a so much celebrated person, if you are not going to use your own stuff, who's going to recognize your stuff then? So next day, he sold off his old car of the foreign car and foreign brand. He actually went for his own Indian brand and Indian car. He came up with immediately within 2 days. So that is actually, that makes me very, very personalized. But whatever stuff we have, that actually, we should actually see it. The way I'm saying it, the reason of I made this film. So when people is going to recognize, before that, you should recognize yourself. That is actually the whole thing, what I actually thought of. That is actually, and most important thing, while during the, like talking to different people, being a sound designer, being a sound editor, so I actually matured a lot, which I was not matured in 20 years. Maybe in these 5 years, with interviewing the people, talking to about Mangesh Desai, I became a much more, and I got more of like how a film editor and sound editor, the bonding, the juxtapose each other so beautifully. One is the cutting point, edit point, how they both can go hand in hand. This particular thing literally I developed so much. I could see it, I could feel it nowadays in my work. So that is the thing actually I have already gone through in this particular process of making this film and talking to people. And these are the things. And with the different director when I spoke, I got to know so much about, even if while I'm just interviewing and using their films. In that particular film, I got the aesthetics and symbolic side of the other side of the particular full film. I saw it in different way, totally. Though I'm a sound designer, initially maybe I was watching that film in a different way. Right now, I'm seeing the film in a different way in that particular point of time. So I actually changed a person through interview, through like making the film to understand the everything. Actually, you can say.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. That's absolutely exceptional. And how about you, Midge? I mean, obviously, you also have particular sound people that sort of symbolize really turning point in the history of how sound has been made in Hollywood, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think what was interesting, I mean, looking at the whole thing, because so many times, like in, at least our American films, it's like you never hear about the sound people. They're kind of in the background, and we don't appreciate sound. Whereas I have to say, like Bollywood, and I always tell my students that if you think about just regular sound, like ambient, and you think about it in terms, it's the music to every scene, is the ambience. But I always say sound is powerful. And just think about music, and everybody knows that music is powerful. It's like if you're in a bad mood, you can change your mood. If your heart is broken, you can break your heart more with the music. So music is powerful, and I think everybody recognizes that. But they don't recognize just the sound, even how somebody voices sound. Or sometimes I'll say on the set, the most important sound might be to get inside somebody's feelings, might be how they breathe, how they cry, the little sounds they make, so it's like they don't understand that. So it was really great to realize that, I mean, what I wanted to show, and this is what Subash's film does so well with Desai, the fact is we're all filmmakers. We're all filmmakers. The costume designer, the makeup people, we're all thinking, what's the story? What matters in the scene? When you break it down. And so I think it was really important, like Walter Murch is a filmmaker. you know, and Ben Burt is a filmmaker, Gary Rydstrom is you know, all of these people are filmmakers. It's like, you know, I was a filmmaker, you know, I'm a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And we're thinking in terms of first story, picture and sound. And so what was amazing was the history and watching how Walter Murch and George Lucas were in school together. And so they knew each other as filmmakers and seeing that history. But the other thing that I learned too was, and it's important to tell my students, although my colleagues might not like it, you have to break the rules to do something different. You know, if you want to change something and not just have mono sound the whole time, be a filmmaker, think like a filmmaker, work with the filmmakers, be a collaborator. And they had to get out of Hollywood, go up in Northern California, you know, and do something different. And they created, when Walter Murch created, when they created the 5.1 surround sound, he had never worked on anything but a mono film, a single mono film.
That was really stunning.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's a passage in the Walter Murch sort of section of your film. I took a note of that because it was too interesting. When he says that with American Zoetrope in San Francisco, they really wanted to break barriers between picture editing and sound editing and mixing. So it kind of, you know, reflects very much what you were just saying now. And then another, you know, way of breaking barriers that to me was very apparent that comes towards the end of your film, which is really dear and important to me, is when women come into the equation. Because obviously you show how, you know, there's lots and loads of women that are, you know, behind the scenes doing the job, and some of them are not really considered for the roles, right? So for example, when you interview the sound editor of Braveheart, when, you know, she was kind of asked.
And Laura Hirschberg, those are two re-recording mixers, and that's a really funny story about how you know, everybody, you know, she said if you're in an airplane, it's like you look in the cockpit and it's like you want a big guy who looks like he's in the military, and he says why? Because they're just pushing buttons, and they do the same thing. I mean, it's a big long console, right, Subash? But it's just like faders up and down. That's it. And so what's so scary about that? So that was really funny. I love that thing, but it's so true. There are a lot of women, but they didn't give them like supervising credits. And now someone like Eileen Lee is so brilliant. And but what I've seen is a lot of times when the women who do well, they end up giving them like children's movies, and they somehow, instead of the big action adventure movies, you know? That has happened. It was like, I worked with Cece Hall, and she was on, you know, different movies. And so that's why I wanted to put her as like, when we did effects, let her talk about effects, because there are a lot of great women effects editors, but not as many. They usually give women dialogue. Is this true, Subash? I'd love to know. Is it what do women? The way that we break down in the United States is it's too much, but hopefully it's changing. But women cut dialogue because it's very detail-oriented work. Right, and nobody knows that there are dialogue editors. Like nobody even knows that in the world. Whereas they probably know there are effects editors. Oh, you're putting in the explosion, you're putting in the car. But not as many women do that. And I did that because a friend of mine from school said, "Oh, Midge, I need somebody to work on this film. It's 16 millimeter. No one will touch it. Will you come and work on it?" And that's when I said, "Oh yeah, I need the money." And then I went to so I'm the one doing the explosions and the cars and everything. And, but there aren't as many women doing that because they say, oh, women don't know about guns or whatever. And when Anna Belmer says that about Braveheart, like, you know, have men been in war? And then they show the old, like, it's funny.
I love that.
Yeah. But Subash, what about, do you have women, are there women editors who are editing effects?
We have, but very, very rare in India. I'm really happy that I saw your film, and it is overwhelming because so many women, I really, it opened my eye today when I was watching. Please share that. I just watching that. But in India, unfortunately, we don't have much of the people. Maybe the women, they are basically here. Actually, we have very, very minimal editors. We don't have that power of editors much because in Hollywood, I'm finding the group of whole sound technician for a film is really, really good amount. But in India, we have very, very, very handful, very less amount of people. Maybe one Foley guy, one sound editor. Nowadays, one person do both the things. But we some people who have like exist in the industry, not monetarily, but yeah, people know just for our work. So but in that case, we actually could afford to pay a bit of money and take good editors, like in different, maybe 4 or 5 different variety of editors. Maybe one guy after the Foley is done, we get the Foley editor to do the job. Again, dialogue editor, then ADR. I used to go personally to dub the film and sit with ADRs. I basically sound designer's job in India is much more because we contribute everything. We are the actually supervising editor as well. So in India, unfortunately, we don't have much of a woman editor, to be honest. They are more sound designer, but some of the people, because of thanks to Pune Film Shoot, which exist like 60 years back. So some of the women, the educated people are coming up and taking up the sound as a course and coming to Bollywood industry and doing the job as a sound designer, not the sound editor. But very rare sound editors are there. Most of the sound editor, dialogue editor are mostly men.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and the gender
But
issue obviously is kind of, you know, we could talk about it for hours and hours, but we won't. But yeah, I mean, I don't know whether Monia, you want to tap into this, because obviously, I mean, that kind of applies to many areas within the film
actually,
industry.
before that, I'll tell you. Actually, I started my career assisting a woman sound designer when I passed out my FTI.
In fact, you're brilliant.
She's supposed to be recognized as the first Indian woman sound designer.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
What's her name?
Her name is Namita Naik. Now, Namita Naik Chopra. And I don't know, after during the course of time, I got to know she was my childhood batchmate. I joined film school a bit late. She joined a bit early. And after working with her for 3-4 years, got to know that actually she was my childhood friend, childhood batchmate in the school, my early school. So she's actually first woman, you can say, actually who changed the industry into a different level. And after that, actually, the woman came following her to the industry.
Okay. So she sort of opened up a little bit for women to follow.
Sorry to say this because she actually got married now to a producer and settled down. And she's not doing any sound job.
Yeah, but in India, I mean, it's still in the industry, in the mainstream industry, the professions are very much gendered, kind of informed, if you want to, you know. But I have to say, Subash, that a lot has been actually happening in the new Hindi kind of, you know, films that have been produced, since the past, say, about 10 years or so, where really the kind of this independent production, if you want to call it like that, they have a lot of female producers, executive producers, and then also women working as a sound engineers and so on. So it's very nice to see how actually the industry is reconfiguring, if you want, this image and moving away from those kind of from the stereotype of certain production or certain professions that instead were in Bollywood. There is still a lot of work to do. I have to say that there was I mean, you would agree there is a lot of there is still kind of some disparity there, so there is work to do, but we are proud of you. I mean, we're very proud of you, Subash. You started your career
so nice. But I'll tell you what you said is absolutely bang on. Actually, since last 10 years, just everything, the Bollywood cinema is changing. Maybe watching Hollywood cinema, and thanks to digital medium, everybody access to the different kind of film. Initially, people used to get the DVD from abroad and watch it, but right now, easy access of this and young generation. Every day
Yeah.
they were watching it is evolving. And as
Yeah.
you say, rightly said, most of the women director, cinematographer, the DJ, the other side, not only sound. I'm talking about, as Miriam said, I was talking about women. Sorry, Mitch said, women sound person is very less in compared to Hollywood. Whatever I saw
Yeah.
today, and I'm talking about sound editor. But you won't find. You can find sound designer, but
Yeah.
you won't still in India. You won't find sound editor.
Right.
That where I can go and work with
Yeah.
them. So it is, but to be honest, I'll tell you, there's not much of a gender issue nowadays, for sure. And you won't believe, in my career of 120 films as a sound designer and production mixer in a span of this period of time. And I have worked with 14 women directors.
Wow. That's
Wow.
great.
Yeah.
That's
That's really
that's a
great.
brilliant
Yeah.
sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Subash, can I just ask, how much of the film, what percentage of dialogue in a film in Bollywood is from the production sound, from the set, and how much is ADR, just generally?
I'll tell you, I have already done 60 to 70 production mixer as a production mixer. I have worked 60 to 70s. I don't actually count nowadays. I forgot to count now. So some of the films I have gone up to 99%.
Wow.
From the location. And
okay, great.
yeah,
Is that a change? My perception was that a lot was done after a while ago, back earlier.
No. Everything nowadays, you can say
Nowadays,
everything is changed for
everything.
sure. Yeah, 100% for sure. But still, the sad part is still some people are not like all the typical Bollywood commercial films. Typical, I can say. So these are the film also they don't believe. But at least some of the actors, they believe in that because they know that actually that the performance, the innocency, the basically ethos, everything they can't actually recreate again. So they push everyone to do the sing sound. But still, there are, in India, you can say 80% of the film is location sound and production, the final thing. 20% still we are doing the dubbing full films.
Yeah. And then all of the songs are usually done, I mean, they're very highly produced, and they're just doing playback on the set. And they're
but the good thing is some of the film nowadays, as you said, since last 10 years it is evolving. Nowadays also some of the film you find no songs. If there is a song, most of the people, they are using background song as a background, not like lip sync. Initially, so used everybody to sing around like the tree. As you say, Bollywood film is the song is more around the tree, the glossy locations, and our dynamic range of films. If you are in a certain level of dialogue and music, and so when the song comes, it totally perfect. But you have to really 7 to 8 dB up than the normal level. Suddenly they want to really, the song is means that is actually commercial part of it. But nowadays people, in particular thanks to OTT platform, they are not believing in songs. They are just doing the film minus the songs. But as a song also nowadays we have started doing as a song and incorporate with all the ambience effects, how to give as a kind of tone, as a kind of, you can one kind of instrument, that effects can be one of the instrument for the whole song. So that way also we are just adding into the songs. And also initially they used to make a song of like 5 to 6 minutes, the duration. Nowadays, if you look at it, the songs are 1.5 minutes maybe maximum, or 2 minutes. They know, but the day by day, the power of the song is reducing. There's actually going. If you can see 5 years back and now, so some of the films, very renowned films also don't have the songs. And easily also films are hit. Films also hit. Successful.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a difference compared to not so long ago. And obviously these different effects and the music are, what one would think makes the power of sound. But something that really came about in both films that I really appreciated was how sound is very intimate element. when it comes to, you know, sort of the voice or the breathing of the character. And connected to that, another element that pertains the area of the sound, and it is equally powerful, obviously, is silence, right? So, I mean, there are two passages in both films where you sort of tackle that. And, well, obviously, in particular, you know, Desai was very, very much onto it. There's a lovely passage, Subash, when someone says he was not afraid of the silence. And I think that really tells a lot about the person, and probably it was really this not being afraid of the silence that allowed him to sort of, you know, be so talented with whatever noise, sound, or music it was able to mix together. And it's probably, if I'm not mistaken, in the section where you use Saving Private Ryan, Midge, when there is this opening, well, obviously the famous opening sequence, there is a lot of, you know, breathing and silence to sort of cut out all the noises and what's happening around, and sort of being more intimate and giving depth to the story.
It's that, and also the Robert Redford movie Ordinary People, which was about a family that's having problems, and it was the mother and the son, and it's uncomfortable, and to have silence sometimes can be uncomfortable, or you hear every little thing. And you know, it's really important. It's really important, just like in music. It's like you can't have everything just, you know, loud all the time. It's like you need those things, like we call it dynamic range. So it's like, where are the quiet moments? Where are the louder moments? You're thinking about those in a whole script and also within a scene. And if you don't have the quiet, then the loud doesn't mean anything. But the other thing is that silence usually is never completely silent. It's that it's so quiet, you hear the little things, the single cricket, the footsteps, the breath, you know, and it's so beautiful because that is so intimate. You hear like, you can hear like the body sounds, you hear, you know, somebody touching someone's face, you hear. So it's really important. I love that about Subash, about your film, when he talks about that, so important. And then you hear the carved out spaces, even in the songs. Beautiful.
I think they both have that, you both highlight in your work the importance of sounds as an architect of emotions, but also because there is at some point in both films you have a sound that creates distances, and you were just saying exactly what I wanted to say, and same thing in Subash's work, as well as sound that creates those kind of space of the soul, but spaces also of you know, emotional spaces and so on, and that takes place as I said in both films, and it's very beautiful the way, which I totally agree with Mitch, sounds is never silent at all, but it needs to be there to somehow build something else, an expectation, or as I said, a multiple dimension of the human existence in the film, or so on. So yes, beautifully addressed, both of you.
And the other thing is about what you were talking about, Miriam, is that part in the Saving Private Ryan is think really about when you bring in music. Like I noticed that young filmmakers coming to film school, sometimes once they put the music on, it's like, oh, it's so exciting. And then they put music all the way through because it's a 5-minute piece, and any composer can do that easily. But you need, you know, the most important things, like the composer will say, is where are the in point and where's the out point? And that you don't just, because music is so powerful, you don't want to overpower the characters, the stories, whatever. So figure out where you want it and not just put it. So that I love that on that beach scene, you know, the whole opening of Saving Private Ryan, no music. It's all punctuated by the sounds, the ambience, the effects. And then, you know, and as Terry Ecton says, that, you know, she's creating how are the sounds, the gunfire, that's essentially the music. What's the rhythm, you know, in that, and then bring in the music But if you bring it in at the right time, so many times I won't even notice that there's music there because my heart is already, my feelings are already there, and then the music comes in. But right, if you bring it too early, like it's like
yeah,
what?
yeah.
That's how the director wants me to feel. You know what I mean? But if you bring
Absolutely, yeah. I had exactly that feeling when, you know, there was this passage of the opening scene of Saving Private Ryan, and as well when there was some talking about Apocalypse Now, obviously, and the scene of the hotel in Hong Kong, perhaps. And so it was really powerful. It was like, you know, this idea of, you know, of the fan in the room that becomes the helicopter, and it was totally attuned, and it was like harmonically attuned, and obviously I had like I felt my heart was beating at the same rhythm, and I was like, oh my god, I've seen this film like 10,000 times, but you know, I've never really noticed that. So it's really powerful. Yeah. So
but I think in Hollywood, actually Bollywood, we are very, very long away from Hollywood because they have sensibility. In India, we are just starting the stepping stone into this. Let's see, because of the young generation, maybe after this generation, we might do something. Because I'll tell you one example. While we're doing, during the discussion of the preliminary stage, while actually script reading stage, while we're reading the script for the going for the production mixing stage. So they talk so much about Hollywood film, this, that, example of Private Ryan, the example of this, that. But when comes to their film, suddenly music take the totally to do two different things. They talk about something like, I thought this is my best film. Finally, end of the day, you work for so much detailing. Finally, the music will take the actually front seat and you will be in the back seat with the sound. That's the whole sad part of Bollywood industry. But yeah, some of the people nowadays are actually getting into that particular zone. That's at least initially it was 90%, 10%. Whole 90% one music initial age up. But nowadays that is the actual proportion of 40 and 60. You can say people are actually thinking about no, we can actually beautifully, as Mitch says, beautifully how without music also you can create that void. You can feel that sensibility, that the whole scene, the feeling of the scene also can be actually, you can be more impactful than the minus the music also. But nobody has the patience to see, experiment and do it and hear it. Then you are not actually satisfied. And some people, some director have their own mental block. So I'll give you one example. In one of my film, I won't take the name. So the director said, "You are going to do everything now. Just see what kind of actual question they are going to ask. If you hire me, what I'm going to do? Actually, you'll be there in sound editing. You are going to supervise these. But of course, if I've already taken the sound designer job, I have to be there. And okay. So in India, in Hollywood, you have like, you have like 8 to 9 months or maybe a year you take for the sound. In India, we take 2 to 2.5 months. So basically, I worked for 3.5 months maybe within that money. So when I went to the mix room, finally, director want me, when he was talking, what kind of mix is this? Where is the music? I thought, what kind of music? Music is there and this also, because you need, no. This particular sound, it is only for the hours, not for the viewers. If it's for hours, let's go for the viewers. Let's go. And finally, I would have done the same work in 10 days. You can believe. I could have done the same work in 10 days, but I spent near about 3.5 months to 4 months. And he said before the thing, he said so highly, you will do this, will do that. Finally, end of the day, it became the musical. And he complained to the producer, I don't want Subash Sahoo to be there in the mixing stage as a sound designer. When I'm there, I don't need it. So producer indirectly called me, like, sorry to say this, please, he's the director. Then I decided when he's not there, I have to go and see his mix. I mix the film, I go there and I see what he has done. So that is the whole sad part of it. So this is also, this kind of people are there in Bollywood also exist.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, you know, a little bit of the approach of Desai maybe, you know, scolding everybody around him. It's really something rare.
We have something very similar, Subash, where the directors that I got, they like sound. But you know, when we get on the mix stage, and now really we only have like a two months or something to do the whole sound. There's not, and then the crews are much smaller now that it's all digital, and it's a lot less time. But even in talking with Ben Burt and Gary Rydstrom, they were on a big movie. I don't think I should say what it was, but it's one of the biggest movies that around the world. And it wasn't their usual director, and the director wanted to put more music in, and they didn't agree with it, and they took their names off the movie as sound designers, but left it on as the re-recording mixers. But you know that we still have big fights. Like, I don't know, Subash, we get on the stage, and it's the re-recording mixers, the director, the producers, and the composer. And then we fight it out like, there's too much music, you're ruining my effects. And then they say, your effects are ruining my music. And we're like,
yeah.
It is everywhere.
I didn't want to put too much of that in but that's traditionally. But the good directors, now what they do is they give the script to the sound designer. They give the script to the composer. They work together, and that's the best thing. But too many times it's like, we don't hear the music until we see it in the movie theater. It's like, where are my effects?
Yeah. It's really, really weird because, you know, obviously as a spectator, we get the final, you know, mixing product. So it's so hard to even imagine that there is so much work, so much effort, and that everything needs to come together to see the final, you know, product, really. Oh my God, it's so fascinating. I have to thank the both of you and to thank Monia as well, because I believe we could go on for hours, but I'm afraid that our Q&A should come to an end soon, because our spectators and participants to the session will probably move on to another screening or another session soon. So many thanks to Midge, many thanks to Monia. Thanks, Subash, for connecting from so far, and for, you know, inputting with these wonderful stories to all of you. Thanks a lot.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Lovely talking to you all. Thank you. Bye.
And thanks to Norient. Bye.